This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand dawning, Cleveland, Ohio, and the rest of planet Earth. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest this morning is a singer, she's an actress, she's a teaching artist, and she is the executive assistant for two nonprofits, and we'll get into that. But first, I will introduce you to Miss Sharron Foxx, two R's, two X's. Welcome to Open Door with Vince Robinson, Sharron.
Well, good afternoon, Vince Robinson. So glad to be here with you. Thank you.
All right.
Looking forward to our interview.
Glad to have you. And I know that I've seen you over the years. I have not been privileged to witness a musical performance, but I've heard raves about what you do. So again, I'm excited about having a fellow artist on with me, a fellow musician. And I think there might be some other parallels that we will get into as we progress. But I understand that you have been born and raised in Cleveland. Can you talk about what it was like for you to grow up in this great city?
Yes. Okay. I usually, when I am posed with that question, I usually start with our English teacher at John Hay said, "You rear children and you raise vegetables." So I was born and reared in Cleveland, Ohio. Most of my formative years was spent in Huff neighborhood, which Huff Heights, people always laugh, but I have a very fond memories of growing up in Huff and in Cleveland. So that's where a lot of my formative years were spent. I'm a graduate of John Hay Hornets for life. Hey, everybody out there. And and spent some later years in East Cleveland, but again, all of my formative years growing up in Cleveland.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that correction about raised and reared. Thank the English teacher for setting everyone straight with that. Did you go to a university or college?
I actually spent some time at Cleveland State University and ended up falling in love, getting married, and having children, and all of that, and went back and went to Tri-C, got my associate's degree from Tri-C. So that's my college experience right there.
Okay. Well, you went local, and that's cool. You probably saved a lot of money on room and board that way.
Oh yes, lots of money. Saved tons of money on room and board.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I mean, it's kind of a sidebar conversation, but, education can be pretty oppressive when it comes to cost. And one of the ways that this society separates people is by affording some the privilege of going to these prestigious universities. But the other side to that is there's just a cost that's associated with that you end up going to your grave with many times because you can never pay that debt off. So sometimes it just pays to do what makes sense.
Right.
Going back to your formative years, there was a point in which you discovered that you had a voice. You're a singer. So what was that point for you?
Oh, wow. Well, actually, I tend to be a quiet person by nature, not shy, but just kind of quiet. So I would spend a lot of time in my room, actually in my closet singing, because I didn't want my family members to hear me singing. And I kind of realized that, wait a minute, I think I have something here. I was in the church choir at St. John's Church on 100th Street of Cedars. I spent time in the children's choir there. And I think by the time I got a little older and got involved in musical theater and took some voice lessons with Lucille Soule at East Cleveland Theater, I was like, I think I kind of have something here that I can kind of build upon with, just natural instincts, but in addition to taking voice classes and lessons. And I kind of felt that, okay, I think I have something that I can, probably a talent that I can, definitely share. So I might have been at that point mid-20s or so. Yeah, my mid-20s. So probably really later in life when I realized that, okay, I have a voice and I need to kind of pursue this and see what I can do with it. So, yep.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's another way to look at coming out of the closet. It will.
Yes. Yeah, I literally came closet because looking back at it, and we're kind of laughing about that, and I laugh about it too. I maybe thought in my own young mind that I could sing, but I really didn't want to share that and let people know that I could sing for fear of people saying, "Oh my gosh, you have a great voice," or whatever, and then feeling like I had to pursue this. So I think, like I said, in my young mind, I may have realized it. I can kind of sing here, but I didn't want people to know that.
Hmm.
To know that. Yeah.
So you sang in a church choir, and
Hmm.
then eventually you're in your 20s and whatnot. Talk about what your music evolved to, because I'm thinking that it probably evolved out of the religious realm and went into a more secular direction.
Hmm. Yeah, children's choir. So yes, there was a lot of ties into, that somewhat typical story of getting your start in church and choir as well. I was started out in a Baptist church growing up and then Episcopalian, so who sometimes can be kind of liberal. So I wasn't forced with having to feel somewhat, if I can use the word, oppressed, feeling like, well, you're not supposed to be singing this type of music or this, that. So it evolved from, just singing in church and things of that nature. And then my brother was a musician and he was in bands here in Cleveland. He was really formative into the funk sound in Cleveland and the band that he was in, Transnational Funk Company. And so he exposed us to a lot of different genres of music as well as our parents. So growing up, we'd hear things from Rolling Stone, Nancy Wilson, the Who, Wilson Pickett. We were kind of all over the map. So I think evolving from singing in church and that type of music to being exposed to, thanks to my brother Greg Smith, being exposed to, music of all sorts of genres. So that I carry that with me now. Matter of fact, the set list that we have now, it does touch on various genres of music because of that upbringing and exposure. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're talking in reference to a band. Talk to us about the formation of that situation.
The formation of the band. My solo project, Foxx and Company, it actually started out. I got in touch with two of my cousins, Renard McPherson, who plays drums, and Darwin McPherson, who plays bass, and they were just playing. They weren't in the closet, but they were in the basement. And I went over there to hear them play, and I was like, "Well, how long have you all been playing together?" And apparently, it had been for months, possibly a year or so. And I was like, "Well, we need to do something together." So we kind of put our heads together, came up with a set list and name, and so we formulated the band. We had our first gig, and I think it was 2018 2018 was our first gig. So we formulated that, me and my two cousins, and we've been playing together, making music, and just enjoying ourselves doing that. So
Wow.
that's how that came about.
Well, that's relatively recently, because I'm not going to put your age out there because I don't know. But
I don't care.
there's a long space between 2018 and when you just started singing. So what were you doing all those years in between?
In between that, a lot of it was musical theater. Done that, East Cleveland Theater. I actually was also in a musical group called in Voice with Irma McQueen and Gwendolyn Coates. I started with them like 1999. And then the three of us went on to form a group, Afterthought and the New Soul Band. And that we started that as well. And so we actually continue with Afterthought and the New Soul Band. We do gigs currently now. So in between my singing growing up and Fox and Company, yes, I did musical theater and working with in voice and Afterthought in the New Soul Band as well. And I also currently sing with Pink Floyd tribute. The sight, wish you were here. The sight and sound of Pink Floyd, a background singer with them as well. So, yep.
Wow. I've been missing out on all this Sharron Foxx, Pink Floyd tribute band, and I love the names of these groups. Afterthought and the New Soul Band. How did you all come up with that?
Actually, that was Irma's idea. Irma came up with the name of that band, Afterthought and the New Soul Band. So yeah, that was Irma's brilliant idea. That's a great name for a band.
Yes, and then equally as great is In Voice, not In
hmm
Vogue, In Voice, and
In voice,
probably in tune, probably correctly pitched.
very perfectly pitched, perfectly pitched.
That is amazing. And then the Pink Floyd tribute band, so it just exposes your rock pedigree.
Yes, and I must say that's one of the foremost. I put tribute in quotes, but it's like a full sight and sound of Pink Floyd. There's lasers, and I mean it's a full blown show. It's not a bar band type of thing where you go to a bar. It's one of the Midwest you know Pink Floyd bands ever. I think probably the oldest, if I'm not mistaken, in the country. Yeah, so we've been around for a long time. I've actually been in the band, oh gosh, 16 years, I believe. Yeah. So it's been a
Wow.
while. Yeah.
Wow. Who knew?
hmm
I never knew. And just thinking about the I guess the spectacle of what you're doing, the level at which you're operating. This is not a Peanuts band. This is not the band that
No.
shows up at Brothers and gets paid $20 per person for a 3 hour
Mm-mm.
performance.
No, it's not. No, we've performed at the Agora and Robbins Theater in Warren, Ohio. And we've also done a lot of out of town gigs in Cincinnati and Kentucky, Michigan. So yeah, it's not like you go to the corner and, like you said, pay $20 and hear it. It is that's why it's referred to as the sight and sound of Pink Floyd. Yeah.
Well, let me set that record straight. It's not pay $20. It's get paid $20 to
Oh,
do a
get paid.
3 hour
Yeah,
performance.
it's true. There you go. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we got just about a minute before we take our break, and you've opened up this. I don't want to call it a can of worms, but the rock thing.
hmm
It's kind of unusual for us, even though we created the music, to be
hmm
out in front of rock music. What's that been like for you?
Wow, it's been very exciting because, again, like I said, even though my parents and my brother exposed us to all genres of all sorts, I tend to be just a rock person at heart. That's like my first love, first and foremost. So to actually be involved in Wish You Were Here is like I'm living out that stereotype. I'm living my rock dreams. I'm living it out because I love rock music, and being involved in a rock and roll band is like my ultimate dream.
Yes.
And so I'm enjoying it, having a great time.
Well, Tina Turner was a rock singer too,
Oh yeah.
and she was very successful at it. So
Yes.
I think you might be on the right path. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is singer, actress, teaching artist, and executive assistant Sharron Foxx. We'll be right back on this Burton Bell Car Community Radio Station, 95.9 FM, WOVU.
Ohio, a new choice for Medicaid is here. Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The name you can trust because we're the plan that plans on everything. From 3 a.m. fevers to life-saving medicines to care wherever you need it, even the unexpected. We've been caring for Ohioans for over 80 years. So choose Anthem for your Medicaid plan. Visit anthemohio.com today.
This was brought to you by Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield Insurance and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Hi, this is Tammy Payton, the CEO and founder of Pillars to Success Incorporated. You are listening to 95.9 FM WOVU, Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
We're back. Open Door with Vince Robinson, and my conversation with Sharron Foxx, who has just given us a clue that she has an affinity to rock music, and I invoked the name of Tina Turner. You know, interestingly enough, a few weeks ago I was watching a video. It was Tina Turner, this Ike and Tina Turner review, and they were performing at the Playboy Club. And Hugh Hefner was interviewing them, but Tina was doing all of the talking. And I can imagine what Ike was thinking. Hey, you know, this is my band, and you're fixated on Tina, but you know, she did what she did. She got away, and then she went on to great success as a musician. And just to share with you, in my growing up years, I lived abroad, and many times I was living in places that did not have R&B stations. So I grew up on a lot of rock music too. I mean, I remember listening to Iron Butterfly and the Edgar Winter Group and the Doobie Brothers and you know, a lot of those Leonard Skinner and some of those other groups. I was actually a DJ when I was in high school.
Oh my!
And I would DJ some of the assemblies that we had, and I played the Doobie Brothers, but I played the Ohio Players and Earth, Wind and Fire too. So you know, great experience. You know, I have great thoughts about listening to rock music as a child, but you know, you evolve and tastes change, and somebody opened the door to jazz to me, and I haven't been the same since. So you've done music, but you've also done musical theater. Talk about how you got involved in theater.
I got involved in theater. Well, that was my dance career. I started out as part of a dance company at Cleveland State, and once I got, and I from that point I got married, engaged, and had a couple children. Then moved back to Cleveland via Houston and then Baltimore. And at that point, we were living in East Cleveland, and I would always pass by the theater and, would be like, I need to go in there and find out what's going on. So that took place over maybe about 2 years. It took me like 2 years to actually finally go in there. And I remember I never forget, once Lost in the Stars, the play Lost in the Stars. And I saw, that's where I first saw Irma McQueen on stage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, her voice is just amazing. And just to be on stage with all these lights and everything. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go in there and audition. So I auditioned. I got a part in, Babes in Toyland. Babes in Toyland, the musical. And so at that point, I just got so enraptured with the lights and the sound and the process of theater, the rehearsals and everything. So that was my first exposure and experience in theater, was auditioning at East Cleveland Theater for Babes in Toyland, and then working with the great Hank Nystrom, who was just a phenomenal theater person. My theater mentor, I called him, and they say the best directors will teach you also about theater, and Hank indeed taught me about theater, just being in productions and just what it takes to be a director and the process and all that. So that was my first experience being exposed to theater, was auditioning at East Cleveland Theater. Yes.
Okay. And then what happened after that? What did you get into as an actress?
As an actor, I went on to, I guess, some of the more things for me that kind of stood out my journey to theater. And interesting enough, I auditioned a couple of times at Caribou, but people were kind of surprised to find that I never really performed at Caribou. Being an actress all these years, I never really was in a play at Caribou, but I did get the chance to work with the great Margaret Ford Taylor in Constant Star, which was done at the Obama Theater. So that was a great experience for me working with her. So I've done things at the Obama, a lot of time spent at Near West Theater as well. I've done projects with the Near West Theater and working with them. And so, yep. So that's theater. I've done things at the Obama and a couple things at Cleveland Public Theater. So, yep.
Okay. So, I'm assuming that you didn't have training in theater, and this is an assumption on my part, but you mentioned Hank. How did you go about learning the craft of acting?
That's true. No, I didn't have like formative experience or, education in theater. It was just by being involved in productions. Just like I said, understanding the rehearsal process, just looking and learning. A lot of time, if I didn't have, scenes on stage, I would just sit in and just kind of looked at, how actors kind of worked with each other and their process. And like I said, watching Hank Nystrom direct projects, that taught me a lot about, theater as well. So that was my exposure. Mm-hmm.
I have to think that it was something that was in you, and you walked by that theater on Euclid Avenue, and you just decided, let me see what this is all about, and it opened the door to a talent that you had. What was the most challenging part of acting for you?
The most challenging part of acting, I would say just trying to be present in the moment, on stage and in the rehearsal process, because life can, just coming into the space and being open to the creative process and trying to let go, that the dog got away and ran down the street and that you burned your lunch or you got a report due at work, just kind of being present in the moment and staying involved in that. And, just being open to the process and also being open to that actors have different ways of, approaching their character, and you have to be, mindful and respectful of that and the way that people work. Just because you work a certain way doesn't mean, other people work that way. Your way works for you, and it's not right or wrong. It what works best for you is that way. So just being open to that. And I kind of laugh too. I tell people that actually my first acting role is actually when I was about 6 years old. I pretended that I couldn't hear. And my mother would go around the house, Sharon, and, and then she'd be like, could you hear me? And I'd be like, no. And so once I found out, okay, I can kind of use this. So she would do that all the time. Did you hear me? I'd be like, no, knowing full well that I could hear her. But so eventually she took me to, I don't know if you remember the Sunbeam School.
Wasn't it over there on Woodland?
Yes, on Woodland. She took me there and I was like, okay, it's time for this to stop because I'm going to be admitted to this. So I finally apologized to my mother about 10 years old to pretending that I was, couldn't hear. But that was my first acting gig. And then growing up, I love movies as well. So I would look at all these old films like, Gold Diggers of 1933 and, all of these old movies. And then I come to love, acting and could appreciate, actors and what they do as well. So, yep.
When you mentioned saying to your mom or just not hearing your mother, first of all, I was thinking, well, yeah, you was just lying.
I was lying. I was just flat out lying. Okay.
But I was thinking about Maya Angelou and how she tells a story of silencing herself because she felt that her words or her voice had the power to kill people. Mm-hmm. Was it something on that level, or was it just you perhaps being an obstinate child?
It was the latter, Vince. Just being an obstinate child. I was a very spoiled youngest of 6 children. So I think it was my way of getting attention and just, just being a knothead, basically.
Okay. So you had the baby girl syndrome.
Yes, I had the baby girl syndrome.
That's amazing. So a few moments ago, you were talking about how actors approach their characters. How did you approach your character?
Well, it depends on what the character is. So it may differ slightly upon what the character is. I tend to start, of course, by all of them, even though it may deviate. I always try to give them a backstory, even if it's not spelled out by the playwright or the director. Just kind of give them a backstory. Maybe there's something in their story that I can relate to personally. Maybe this, were they abandoned as a child, or did they have a parent that may have had, an alcohol or substance abuse problem, or did they grow up in the inner city, or, something that I could relate to, or in my own actor's mind, be like, okay, I can use this to kind of further develop the character. So, of course, giving it a backstory always helps for me. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the idea of memorizing those lines. What was your approach to memorization?
Memorizing those lines, which gets more challenging the older I get. Memorizing lines. Repetition. And sometimes I found that occasionally I may even write a line over and over again, recording a line. So that may differ as well. So that tends to work for me. Just repetition and just going over the material over and over again. Yep.
Okay. I've faced that dilemma myself, and in the poetry realm, it's just a 3-minute poem. It takes you forever to memorize, so I can only imagine what it'd be like for an actor, because it's not just 3 minutes, it's 2 hours, and you're not just memorizing your lines.
Right.
You have to memorize their lines too.
Their lines too, yeah. That's something I remember doing. A Constant Star, I had like a 1-page monologue. I'm like, oh my God. So that was challenging. But again, it was like repetition, rehearsing. I think that one I did record. So I was able to kind of listen to it while I'm washing dishes or something, to kind of get it in my psyche, in my head, so I can kind of remember it. But yeah, it gets challenging. But you try to find ways to, make it a little easier. Like I said, particularly, the aging process, the memories, let's face it, it's not quite as it was when I was, 20 years old. So I have to try to find new ways and creative ways to kind of, help me memorize, lines.
And it also has to be something that you love, having been involved in a few theatrical productions. Actors work long hours.
Yes.
They don't get paid for their rehearsals and all of that. It's like when I looked at that as a career, I'm thinking to myself, why would anybody want to put themselves through so much to get so little in return? And sometimes it's just that applause at the end of the production, and the audience stands on their feet and they applaud you, but all that applause ain't paying the mortgage.
And I know, and I can respect the fact that, oh my gosh, I think exactly what you're thinking as well, particularly as it relates to Broadway. You do these shows 7-8 times a week, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I respect that. I respect that it's like, oh my gosh, 7-8 times a week. It has to be grueling, but like you said, it has to be something that you love. So apparently, we're gonna say apparently that you love doing this because you do it 7-8 times.
Yes. Now we have a mutual friend named Terrence Spivey, and I think you have done some work with him, and I want to talk to you about another pivot that you made in your artistic resume that is quite profound. We'll talk about that when we get back. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM, WOVU, Burton Bell Carr, Community Radio.
What's happening, Cleveland? This is Detective Felton Collier, and I am the lead public safety recruiter for the City of Cleveland's Department of Public Safety. Are you interested in a job with fantastic pay and benefits? How about a change from day-to-day office life? Look no further because Cleveland's Division of Police is now accepting applications for police officers. Why not enter the exciting field of law enforcement? We are constantly changing and progressing for the benefit of our communities. The Division of Police offers up to a $5,000 sign-on bonus. The academy pay is almost $25 per hour, and there is tuition reimbursement for those who have completed Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy. Plus, if you are a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces and or hold a college degree, you can receive additional salary incentives. Call 216-623-5233 to speak with our recruiters, or go to clevelandohio.gov/jobs. Apply today and join our team.
This message was brought to you by Cleveland Public Safety Department and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united. Burton Belcar Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is actress Sharron Foxx. We've been talking about her acting career, and she's done theatrical stuff, I guess, musical theater perhaps. But at a certain point, I guess based on what was going on at the time, the good old pandemic, there was a pivot that took place, and you did a project with Terrence Spivey, who has done some profound things in theater, and then he made a switch to do film. So talk about the film that you worked on with Terrence.
Oh my goodness, that was just an amazing project to be involved in. We actually filmed that, yes, as you said, during the pandemic, and it was very emotional, yet something that we all felt that we had to do, along with Michael Mays was also involved in that as well as my young nephew, Carter Miller, who played a part in that film. And I think just the time that we were living in with everything going on, and obviously it was a response to the time, and particularly the killing of George Floyd. So it was, very emotional, again, as I say, for all of us to actually do that and to see the final production, the final production of the film. It was just incredible and moving. And Terrence's work, just on a on a scale altogether, is just very thought provoking. It's very. He always leaves you with something to think about, and a lot of times it's things that you haven't even thought about before you got into the theater or in to see the movie. So particularly working on that project was it's very profound. And being the mother of sons also, that touched me, just that whole time that we were living in with everything going on. So I was happy to be involved in the project. And so it took me a while to actually look at it. And I tend to get, as I am now, kind of emotional thinking about it. But again, it was just profound and just very touching to be involved in. I thank Terrence for asking me to be involved in that project.
So tell us a little bit more about the film, the title and the premise of it.
The premise of the film, it was oh my gosh, I can't remember the title, 814. It was based upon the minutes. The title of the film is based upon the number of minutes that the police officer had his knee on George Floyd. I think it's 8:19. So that was the title of the project. And I'm sorry, what was your other question? Like I said, I get emotional kind of thinking about it. So
yeah, your role in the film. What did you do in relation to it?
The role in the film, I played the mother of the male character in the film, the mother to Michael Mays' character, and it was just there were no dialogue on my part of the film, but it was also him thinking about the moment that he may have been dealing with, how he just thought about his mother at that time, and how the character in this regard, it was also connected to a lynching that took place in Texas. And so it talked about not only George Floyd's calling out for his mother at that particular minute, but also maybe the character, the gentleman that was lynched in Texas, how he related to and may have been thinking about his relationship as his mother, being in the warmth and the comfort of his mother at that time. So I played the mother in that instance. And there's some cutaways to me embracing Michael May's character as a child and how he thought about that. And I think there's also a picture of me and Michael May's character also embracing as well. So I played his mother in the film, in the short.
And this is a short film. You're saying that you didn't have dialogue, so you really had to rely on your acting chops to convey certain things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah, no dialogue. So yeah, I had to rely on that, and with Terrence's direction, telling us, what he wanted, what he saw, and what we were to kind of bring out and evoke what he saw in that particular image. So yeah.
And what was the experience like for you? Different than, or how was it different for you being in front of a camera versus being in front of an audience?
I actually, I enjoy both, but I actually, it was my intention to major in film at Cleveland State. So I enjoy being in front of the camera, but that you can't replicate the sound of the applause that you get from being in front of a theatrical audience. So I totally get, when we actors say it's just something about the sound of the applause, but being in front of the camera and being in that respect, for me, it made me delve a little deeper and be a little bit more introspective. It may have also been the nature of what we were filming that put me in that kind of headspace. But I think having done a couple things in front of the camera, I think that's a common thing for me. It makes me delve a little deeper just being in front of the camera. So I enjoy both processes, but something about, being in front of the camera for me just kind of wins out.
After observing him in that role, have you ever thought about being outside of being in front of the camera and perhaps being behind it as a director or another aspect of someone involved in filmmaking?
Yes, it was, like I said, I went to Cleveland State to actually get into filmmaking at the time. I really wanted to get into editing. So I have been on a couple film sets as well, continuity. And so, I think eventually I may get back into it. I love the idea. I've also directed some theatrical projects, but I love film and I love the process of filmmaking and all of that as well. So, it's definitely there in me, and maybe it's something I need to, reevaluate and may actually kind of revisit before the year is out. So,
okay. So now you just opened another door. I didn't know that you were, I didn't know that you were a director. You're wearing all these different hats. Talk about some of the projects that you've been involved in as a director.
As a director, what have I done? Well, I've directed, some of the major, I've done things actually the last project I directed was for this past Martin Luther King Day at our church. We have a Nottingham Cultural Arts Center at Nottingham Church on St. Clair. And so I directed a dramatic reading from Birmingham Jail, which is based upon Martin Luther King's letters from a Birmingham jail. So that was the most recent thing I've directed. I also directed a couple projects by Gwen Wright, who's an amazing playwright. She lives in Arizona and Phoenix, but she spent some time in Cleveland. I directed a project of hers called The Lynching of Effie Childs that was at East Cleveland Public Library. Can't remember what year that is, 2018 or so. So I've directed a few projects. I've directed August Wilson's, it's my favorite play. Why can't I remember my favorite August Wilson play? But it was at East Cleveland Theater. I directed that project, and the title just totally went out of my head.
It wasn't the piano lesson. It wasn't
No.
Fences. It wasn't
Oh
Two
my gosh.
Trains.
Oh my gosh, this is terrible. The one with he has the daughter, he goes to this rooming house, and oh my gosh, that's terrible. You can't remember your favorite August Wilson play. But maybe it'll come to me by the time
Okay.
we get off of this call. But that was like really big for me because I love August Wilson. Terrence and I have these conversations about August Wilson all the time. So that was really just a amazing honor for me. And then to have Hank Nystrom, like I mentioned his name earlier, who's my mentor. He actually came in and looked at my rehearsal process and was able to sit in and kind of watch that with me as well. So that was like an extra treat to have Hank there with me as well. So, yep.
Well, listening to the projects that you were involved in as a director, it seems as though there's a certain similarity between you and Terrence in that, and you said earlier in our conversation that he makes you think about things. When you talk about Letter from a Birmingham Jail and the other things that you mentioned, there seems to be a message in that. What do you see theater as in terms of its role in affecting and shaping thought?
Mm-hmm. I definitely see it as that. One of the things shaping thought and giving just a platform for creative ideas and to give people voice. I mean, there's so many voices and so many stories out here that I think theater is one way to kind of open that door on many levels, a local level, whether it's in the community theater, and then on a larger scale of, Broadway and beyond. I think everyone has a story to tell. So I think theater gives us that space, allows us that space to be creative and to give people, a platform to tell their story. Because as people said before, everyone has a story and we should all be, open to listening to everyone's, life's experience. So I think that's definitely one way that theater does this. And it just dawned on me. It's Joe Turner. It's come and gone. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
I'm glad that came back to you because,
Yes.
being up in age sometimes has its challenges.
Yes, we have those moments.
Yes.
Terrence would have gotten on me about that as well.
Okay. So you just mentioned telling stories. What story would you like to tell?
Actually, I've a lot of stories, but the main story that I'd like to continue to tell, I actually had a platform to tell it, which was amazing. And it was a story, the relationship that I have with my mother, which is great. It's great. Let me start there. It's really, it's a great relationship. She's like my head cheerleader, champion, and I'd like to continue that. I started writing about my mother and our journey about 5 or 6 years ago, because it was great to see it evolve from mother and daughter to friend. And now it's evolved into me mothering her. And that's kind of what I titled it, Mothering Mommy. And I had in writing down these stories and kind of having her tell me, going more into detail about her growing up and things that she experienced as a young mother and wife and, who was widowed at a young age and was faced with raising 6 children on her own. It was very moving for her, and she found it kind of hard for her to talk about some things that had happened in her life. So I started documenting and writing about these things, and then I was approached by Trinidad Schneider, artistic director at Near West Theater, about a project that they had, community voices in the community, I think it was. And so I told her about that, and I was like, I want to do that as my presentation. So I came up with I threw some songs in there and came up with some pictures and actually turned it into a theatrical project.
Okay, so hold up. Now you done put on
another door, Vince.
Another door, another hat. I'm having a difficult time keeping up with all these things. And we got some other doors that we need to open when we return. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is the amazing Sharron Foxx, and we're going to talk more about Sharron when we return. This is 95.9 FM, WOVU, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
The best thing Tri-C did for me was give me opportunities. The workforce program prepared me for the career I have now. I got a job in the aerospace industries where I work on CNC machines. I have 3 younger brothers. I want to teach my brothers, hard work actually pays off. Come to Tri-C. It's a great stepping stone to wherever you're trying to get to in life. My name is Chris Grooms, and I got my start at Tri-C.
Start now at tri-c.edu.
This message was brought to you by WOVU 95.9 FM at Burton Bear Carr Community Radio Station.
Ohio, a new choice for Medicaid is here. Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, the name you can trust because we're the plan that plans on everything, from 3 a.m. fevers to life-saving medicines. So choose Anthem for your Medicaid plan. Visit anthemohio.com today.
This was brought to you by Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield Insurance and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united. Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Hi, this is April Urban from Signal Cleveland, and you're listening to WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
We're back. Open Door with Vince Robinson and the amazing, and I'm going to say it again, the amazing Sharron Foxx, who I just discovered is a director, is a writer, is a dancer, is an actress, is a singer, and she's also an executive assistant to 2 nonprofits. Oh, and on top of everything else, she's an activist. We were talking about telling stories, and then you brought up your mother, who was widowed and had to raise 6 children. And you also talked about you mothering. So I guess the roles have changed to a certain extent with this person that evolved into being your friend. And now you're seeing how the roles change. Talk to us about your mother's story.
Oh, wow. My mother's story. Like I said, well, she was actually born in Scotts, Arkansas. Moved up to here. I'll make this real brief. Of course, moved up to Cleveland when she was 3 years old. And with her, she was the 3rd child of 8 children. And so her mother moved up here, Dozier. And there's a story that there's some truth to it. I haven't really delved into it, but she's a distant cousin of Aretha Franklin. So my mom's maiden name is Franklin. And so they moved up here to Cleveland. And like I said, that time, she got married and stuff, had kids with my father. She went on to, like I said, after my father died, to raise all 6 of us. And she went on to get her master's degree from Marymount College. So she's just a phenomenal woman in and of herself and my hero. So she managed, like I said, to hold on to her children. And many people were telling her, well, you can't raise 6 children by yourself. And a couple people suggested that, she send some of, I guess, my older siblings, slightly older siblings, up for adoption. But she was determined to keep us together and rear all 6 of us, which she did. And like I said, she went on to get her master's degree, and she was a registered nurse. And, she also managed to just live life on her own terms and she was like the first Black woman with a blonde afro that I ever saw growing up. Both of my parents were very much into the movement at the time, growing up in the 60s, the Black nationalist movement. So she was that Renaissance woman. That was my mother. She was true Renaissance woman. So I love her dearly, and we talk pretty much every day. And she's just an inspiration and, just my hero. Love her dearly. So, yeah.
Well, that's proof positive that the fruit does not fall far away from the tree.
Well, thank you.
That's just an amazing story. And I apologize for my overuse of the term amazing, but that's what's reverberating in my head.
Thank you.
So you told me that you are also the executive assistant for two nonprofits. Tell us about those situations.
Okay, well, I work with executive assistant East Cleveland Bridges of Hope Drug Free Coalition. Say that 5 times real fast, and it's a part of Northern Ohio Recovery Association. So we do substance abuse work mainly in the city of East Cleveland. So we try to have through environmental change, whether it's signage or programming. And so all of our community partners, we try to get around the table to collaborate on different things. Try not to reinvent the wheel. If someone is doing a project like a health fair, instead of having 10 health fairs, why don't we all get together and work on one? So that's a lot of the things that we do in East Cleveland. And the HOPE in East Cleveland Bridges of Hope stands for Health, Opportunity, Prevention, and Empowerment. So that's the work that we do on East Cleveland. And the other organization I'm executive assistant of is Powerful Long Ladder Theater, which is the theater company that Terrence Spivey founded, and he's executive artistic director of. So, and you know of Terrence's amazing work. He's just incredible. He's a force. Terrence he's quite a force. So, yeah, the projects that we're currently involved in, we have an after school program in Milkovich Middle School called the Ultimate Reach. And so that project is mainly to give youth a voice, to help them have social emotional learning, team building through the use of creativity, drama, theater games, and things of that nature. So it's exciting work. I really enjoy what I do with both of those organizations. It's really incredible. Particularly working with youth. I just enjoy that. So I'm lucky to be involved in both organizations who directly work with youth and youth programming.
Yes. That intergenerational connection is so important. And,
yes.
When we look at relationships, we always think about, well, we're mentors, we're wise, we've been around for so long. But the other side to that is that we have an opportunity to learn from young people. So I'll ask you, what are you learning from the young people that you are engaged with?
Well, my motto when I started being a teaching artist in 1999 at Liberty Hill Baptist Church, and my motto at that point was to teach is to learn twice. So you're always in that position of not only teaching, but what can you glean? What can you gauge from young people? And one of the things that that actually helps me is just the youthful outlook on life, just in general. So I learned that from them, and that everyone's voice, no matter what age, is important. So they teach me, in addition to the latest dances and the latest words, I learned just to kind of let life happen and unfold, but also put yourself in a position where, you can learn from other people, and just to kind of be present in the moment and not always be on 10 all the time, and just kind of relax and let life happen.
It's interesting when we talk about young people, when we look at the difference between how things were when we were coming up and how things are for them now. They have so much access to information. If they have a question and they ask you and you don't know the answer, and you're not honest enough to say, I don't know, and you try to BS your way through it.
Right.
They'll just pull out the phone and pull up Google, and then they'll get that information and keep it moving.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering how you see the difference in young people. How do you think they're different now than they were when we were coming up?
I think, like you said, I think having that immediate access to social, the internet, and just a sense of honesty. I mean, granted, we wanted honesty growing up and all that, but I think even more so, it's like they want their questions answered, and they want them answered like now with a sense of honesty and a sense of trust. And young people can read, they have this remarkable ability of sensing you up and out within minutes of meeting you. They know, is this a person I can talk to and trust within a sense of minutes. And so I think there's sense of, being able to recognize if you're real, if you're going to be sincere, if you're fake, that I can appreciate that, because they will sense you up and have you read in a matter of minutes. So I think that's a big difference too. And maybe not, but I think just having access to, like I said, the internet may be a part of that, in my opinion. Maybe not, but I think that's also in my opinion, because like you said, they can just, call up things within a minute, just pull their phone up, like you say, and just get the answer to whatever they need to have answered. So, yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering, though, their ability to read you so quickly, is that an invitation for them to disrespect you? And the reason I ask this question, I was in a theater last night watching a premiere of a film that was done locally, and there were some young people sitting behind me. And this young person, or maybe it was more than one, but they just kept kicking my chair.
Oh, my.
And I'm thinking, okay, how long do I take this abuse? Because I feel like, I'm being assaulted.
Yeah, after a certain point in time, you do feel like, wait a minute, this is like.
And so I turned around and I said, could you please stop kicking my chair? And then, moments later, it resumed, and, I'm sitting there feeling disrespected, but I know if I say something, it's going to be problems.
Yeah.
So then a little bit later, I'm sitting there, and I guess something must have rolled under my seat in front of me, and the young man behind me says, could you give me that pink thing?
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, okay, and I reached down, I picked it up, and I gave it to him. There was no please, and there was no thank you.
Yeah.
And, those things are really basic. And I think in a large sense, as parents, some of us have failed in giving our children an understanding that it's important to respect people. So I just wonder, sometimes if their ability to read us, and then after I made the comment to him, because I said, hey, please and thank you. And then somebody sitting next to him basically said, yeah, man, please and thank you. But anyway, sorry, we had to get off on that tangent. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to get to Sharron Foxx future. So you're wearing all these different hats, you're singing.
Apparently a lot of hats. Thanks, Vince, for reminding me.
Well, the question is, how do you manage all these things going on at one time?
Oh my goodness. First of all, a calendar, and just making sure that I do things that I love, and also having the ability to sometimes say no to things. I remember I used to, talk with Marjorie Witt Johnson, who's formulated the Carol Moo Dancers years ago. I used to go and visit her and hold court with her. And she used to tell me all the time the same thing. How are you doing all these things? She said, there's no such thing as multitasking. I was like, yes, it is. But I found out there isn't. So it's just trying to regulate and just choose to do things that I absolutely, that I absolutely positively love. Not that I like or that I want to do, but I have to actually love it. So that's how I kind of, make room to do all these things.
Okay. Well, I don't want to invite people to make Sharron Foxx even busier, but if folks are interested in reaching out to you for whatever reason, and you can reserve the right to say no, how would they reach you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am on Facebook under my name, Sharron R Foxx XX. I also have an Instagram page with all of these are like under my name, Sharron R Foxx XX. And apparently Vince helped me with my Facebook. Is this my Facebook website, or the Sharron.Foxx.7? I guess you can access me on Facebook as well. And my website, band website, bear with me, it has to be updated, but it is Foxx, Foxx, and Company.
Yeah, and Co.
And Co. Thanks, Vince. Yes. I have to hire you. And Co. Foxx, ampersand, Co. CW period. So, yep. Okay. So if you can't reach me one way, then reach me one of those ways, and I'll make sure you have access to all of the the other things as well.
Well, Sharron, I want to congratulate you on the success that you are enjoying as a multi-talented, creative person in today's art and cultural world, and urge you to continue doing what you're doing, and we'll just watch that star shining brightly and rising on the horizon. And I promise, one of these days, I'm going to come and see your band perform and enjoy it immensely.
Great. Well, thank you, Vince. I really appreciate talking to you today. It's been a joy, and thanks again. Thank you so much.
All right. And to those of you who are listening, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your best day. Peace.